Hello, beer fans. This is a mini Fandango Friday. It's the whole idea where people, these are beer groups, and sometimes something just comes together at the last minute. And I set up this channel just for this reason to do these sort of impromptu, spur of the moment type stuff. And to this evening, I'm joined by Michael Komarov from the great state of New York, the Empire State, and so we're going to do a beer right now. And
thank you
what do you
for
have,
hosting,
Michael?
William. Okay, this is from the state where William is in North Carolina, from Pryor Brewing, Preyer, called Lewis and Crunk IPA, and they're saying on the bottom it's a West Coast IPA at 7.1% alcohol. I don't know what the IBUs are, but this is it. The whole thing is now in the glass. I was able to get it to settle down. It's a hazy golden orange with a very frothy, I thought it was off-white head, but it's kind of a whitish head, maybe a little bit off-white, and it's still very frothy. Let me give it a nose. You're getting the hops, you're getting some pine and some resin, so it does seem like very West Coast. I can't smell the alcohol. Let me give it a taste. Well, it's very nice. The taste follows the nose. Very hoppy front end. You get the pine, you get the resin. It's kind of dank. Medium mouthfeel. It seems very drinkable for 7.1. The alcohol is well hidden. Maybe it drinks more like a session beer. It goes down pretty easy. You notice you get some nice lacing on the top.
That's really clinging to the glass.
It's clinging to the glass, which is good. And as I told William earlier, these cans came from my cousin who lives in Winston-Salem, and he's not really a beer aficionado. So he sent me these IPAs, and I can't tell. Some of the cans are dated, some aren't. So I would assume that this is in the 4 or 5 months time, and it could be 6 or 7 for all I know. But if it is 6 or 7, it's held up pretty well, and the hops are still showing up, and that's a good thing. I do like it, and this is one of the ones he did send me 2 of, and I will give a rating later. William, you can give yours.
Okay. I believe as a general rule, you can say that you've been pretty well pleased with the beers you got from the Tar Heel State.
Almost all of them. I've only had one drain pour. He had one, which I didn't even notice the date at the beginning, and it was from 2018.
Oh, really?
It was bad. I poured it, and it was all sediment and floaties, and I didn't even want to take the chance that it would upset my stomach if I drank it, so I just poured it down the drain. That's the only one I had to get rid of. I've had some that weren't as good as they would have been if they were fresh, but they were still drinkable.
Okay. What I have tonight is a blonde ale from Wild Leap Brewing Company. LaGrange, Georgia, 5.4% ABV. A really nice beer to drink as the temperature is gradually, we're in the springtime now. The temperatures are moderating across much of the country. So this is a very refreshing beer. I just poured it. The head has gone down, but it had about a 2-finger head. This is a hazy gold. Take a sniff. Wow. It's nice. It's a very citrusy, orangey tangerine. I'm thinking of breakfast time. Okay. Already getting a little clinging to the glass, and so cheers on a Friday night.
Cheers, William.
That's very refreshing. This is nice. this is a beer that I mentioned to you off air. Last spring, almost a year ago, my friend John Neely, who visited me from Georgia, he brought me a 6-pack of this beer. And just recently, I had to take chemo treatments, and during the chemo session, which are rather long, you strike up conversations with people, and find out what their common interests are. And it happened to be that a few beer enthusiasts happened to be in the infusion room, and I got to be pretty friendly with a couple of those people. And someone actually sent me some beers, and I opened it up and I said, "Well, I've seen this beer before. This is the local Wild Leap local." So that was a very ironic moment. The fact that I didn't think I'd probably ever see this again unless I was traveling in Georgia. But I've been drinking on this 6-pack right now, and this has your classic like profile of a craft beer interpretation of a sessionable drink, a lighter sessionable type beer. You get the tangerine lemony notes, just enough of an undercurrent of hop bitterness to balance it out. This is definitely not a hoppy beer. I don't think anybody that drink a Budweiser as their staple would be afraid of this beer. It's just a sort of a craft beer take on a light sessionable beer, something a lawnmower beer, a fishing beer, grilling out during the summertime beer. So it's that, and I think for the design purpose, I think it hit the mark pretty well. I'll take another sip.
So you think the macro people would like this beer if they were given it?
I don't see why they wouldn't. It would be a little bit of a change of pace. The ABV range is right there, 5 point. It's safe. Like I say, just enough. I mean, compared to a Budweiser Miller High Life, yes, there's a little bit of a hoppy element to it, but it's not. It's very mild. It's not a puckering type of a bitterness or anything like it. Just a little bit of a balancing, and it lingers a little bit to finish, so just a little bit of hot. But like this would be a perfect gateway, something like this, for someone whose regular beers are Budweiser, even the light beer drinkers, if they wanted to venture out a little bit. I don't think they would dislike this really, majority. And I'll give it a little swirl here. Like I said, it had a nice head originally, and it's swirling up pretty nicely right now. But like I said, for the intended drinker, I think they did a very good job with this. You could drink a ton of these in the summertime. It goes down very easy. But that's the market, the way the expansion of the craft beer market, they want a piece of the pie of the people who don't regularly drink craft beer. So they're making more sessionable products. They're trying to reach out. So like if you'll meet me halfway.
Right. And golden ales are known for beers which are not as hoppy as others. So you can brew those with the intention of getting your Budweiser drinker, your Bud Light drinker, who'll give it a shot. And maybe it won't be their regular beer, but if they went to a party and it was offered, they would be cool with it.
Yeah, and so I think, with this one, it's sort of like, if you'll meet me halfway, that's perfectly designed what this is. And I think they did a good job with it.
Now, I would say mine is probably too intense for this to be their first IPA. But because as I'm drinking it, there's quite a bit of bitterness that is on the finish. So there's bitterness that stays in your mouth. So it wouldn't be for maybe somebody who could start out with like Sierra Nevada Pale Ale and then graduate to the bigger stuff if they want to. Some people might be grossed out by how intense the bitterness is on this and would never like it. I could estimate that the IBUs in this are about 50, but it could even be a little bit more. It's not a palate wrecker. It's not a resin, but it has some hop hop intensity and bitterness in it. But if you're a regular IPA drinker, you probably would gravitate to something like this. There's nothing that's different. If you like West Coast IPAs, I know like John Anilli likes East Coast IPAs better than West Coast, and IPAs are not his favorite style anyway. He'll drink them, but he likes stouts and other things and sours better. I was somebody who was always into IPAs, and now that I've been drinking more stouts, I've been venturing more to the dark side. But as we get more into spring, I don't drink stouts and brown ales as much. So I will start drinking IPAs again.
Yeah, the dark side is very well suited for the winter time. I think as we're moving now into more moderate temperatures and heading toward, even somewhere a couple months away, that the more moderate ABV, the moderate bitterness beers will probably take center stage with a lot of people's drinking activities.
Right. And when we do our beer tastings, which I can mention to you now, we did one last night because yesterday was the first Thursday of the month. And we normally have at least 7 or 8 people. Only one extra person came. So it was my wife and I and this one friend, and he came with his full mask and gloves.
Oh, really?
We had our own potato chip plates with our own salsa. And we sat 4 feet apart, each of us. So it was almost like we ran it, like we were following the regulations, they were saying, because if you're going to do something, even for a couple of hours, I don't think anybody has the coronavirus, but why would you take a chance? So, you can't be stupid. But he lives in the neighborhood. He lives about 8 blocks away. He didn't mind walking over to my house, and I hadn't seen him in a couple of weeks. So it was kind of nice seeing him again. And it went well. And we did about half and half stouts, a Scotch ale, a German Helles lager, a Canadian red lager. So it's a whole bunch of different stuff. Red lagers are kind of weird because I'd had red ales before. I hadn't had a red lager. It wasn't wonderful, but it was okay. And we enjoyed just the fact that we were doing a beer activity, just like this impromptu kind of thing. It's kind of cool also.
Yeah, you mentioned about the social distancing. When I took my chemo treatments, I didn't lose my hair like a lot of patients do. And so when I got finished with these treatments, I was sort of superstitious about cutting it. I didn't anticipate we're going to have this pandemic, and now I need a haircut badly, but I can't find a barber with 6-foot long arms. So
yeah, I was going to say they're all closed down because that's like the riskiest way.
Yeah.
Their hands are right in your face when they're cutting it.
I'm still on the lookout for a barber whose arms are at least 6 feet long. If you want to apply, I'll leave a link below. But
by growing your hair out during the pandemic, at least you're showing your own strength, and you're like Samson.
That's right. That's the irony about this was that I didn't cut it because I was superstitious. Then I got to think about the Bible story with Samson.
Right.
But now with this onset of this pandemic, I said, I'm sort of stuck in a mode but what the hell, it's not a big deal.
I think it's only going to be for a couple of months. The only thing I'm wondering about, will there be residual effect in the fall? Because they're saying when it gets hot, this virus doesn't do as well. So things will probably start calming down once we get into the warmer temperatures. But then they say it's a chance once it starts cooling off again, it could come back. And that's what we worry about.
Yeah. I think it's the degree of uncertainty that really is what alarms people, that this is uncharted territory.
Right. And they're probably not going to be able to come up with a vaccine soon enough to really make it.
It's the uncertainty, the abruptness, how it came about and such.
Right. But they do have a test now. If you haven't heard, Abbott Labs has come out with a test now. It only takes 15 minutes, and you have the results in 50 minutes, where these other ones took days before you found out. They're using it in Detroit now, which I think is number 3 on the list. I think it's number 2 per capita. New Orleans is 1 and Detroit is 2. New York has the most deaths, but it's because of the population being
it has to be prorated, so to speak.
Right. We have 8.5 million people just in the city limits, and if you look at the metro area, there's 20 million. So
if you take into account that metropolitan area, I mean, it's more than
Connecticut, New Jersey, and Long Island and Westchester, and it's the largest metropolitan area in the country. The only one that's close is the LA area. If you take in, Long Beach and all the different suburbs of LA, but I think that's still less than 20 million.
Yeah, it's all about the population density and where they're closely packed together.
But we're doing the social distancing now too. But the problem was we didn't do it right at the beginning. In other words, once it had started, they should have instituted it right away. We're supposed to start wearing masks now.
Yeah, quite a bit different in New York City than if you're living out in Wyoming, so to speak.
Right, or any of the places out west.
Takes on a whole different meaning out there. You're isolated.
How many people per square foot do they have in Wyoming? It's pretty.
It is the least populated state.
I know.
believe, as far as
even Idaho and Montana are pretty sparse.
Yeah.
So North Carolina, where you are, is growing like by leaps and bounds. I mean, every county in North Carolina is growing.
Charlotte is growing at a rate of 19%. It's going to be a million population for Charlotte before too long. And he's got the Research Triangle Park area.
Growing quickly too.
A lot of transplanted Northerners are moving to this area. And
I have a nephew who lives in Raleigh, and he used to live in Durham. So
a lot of biometrics, biotech, and that it's really. And you have the two universities 8 miles apart, Duke and the University of North Carolina.
Right, and then you have Wake Forest, which is maybe another.
Wake Forest and Winston-Salem. Right? So I'm only about 20 miles from. Actually, the hospital where I had my treatment is owned by Wake Forest Baptist Health.
Okay, so you were doing a lot there for you're doing your
there's
test.
A lot of most of mine was done in the town of High Point, about 8 miles away. But there's a lot of consolidation in the medical, hospitals buying other hospitals and such. It's going to be or that's only owned by a few different ones. But okay, how would you? Okay, let's get to the score.
Okay, you want me to give you a number on this one?
Yeah, give me a number.
I'm going to give it a 91.
So it slips in the A range.
It's kind of like an A-, and I guess one of the main reasons I can't give it more is maybe its age a little bit. Maybe it is kind of a little bit older, so the hops are not perfect. But to get an A- on a beer that my cousin sent me, I certainly can't complain.
Yeah, there's no. So you yours will sort of go with a little disclaimer that potentially it could be a bit better.
So this might be, if it was fresh, maybe a 94 or a 95, because I can taste a little bit of hop fade, but it's enough taste and bitterness. It's still complete where it's still an A-. And I would recommend, if you see Pryor's, Lewis, and Crunk, and you can get a single, or even a 6-pack if you're in the mood to drink a 6-pack. I don't know what the price point is on this. I have no idea. But if you go toward Greensboro and check and see if they have Lewis and Crunk beers, or a Lewis and Crunk beer from Pryor, maybe you can try it and let me know what you think. How would you rate yours?
I just gave another pour here. This would be pretty representative of the.
Okay, give it another shot and see.
Nice looking, a lot of haze.
That's a nice beer too. You're getting nice, nice head. It's holding up.
Yeah, rich golden appearance. Yeah, the Pryor beer you have there. I'm going to check that one out because, like I said, I only live about 20 miles from Greensboro, so I may have to check that one out.
And I know they make at least a few other things too. It's not their only beer, but I don't know how good they are.
With this one, I would put this in the A range about 93.
Okay. There's a good chance John probably did that one too, but I know he did some Wild Leap ones on his site on Georgia Beer Reviews. So
yeah, I would put this along the Kolsch, the Helles, this beer. They're all pretty. They sort of all under the same umbrella. The light sessionable beers on the craft side, and I also do my Taco Bell rating system. So. Here. This is a solid fire.
Okay, so this is at the top. This is 4 out of 5.
4 out of 5. Only topped by the Diablo, but it's a solid fire.
Okay, that's good.
Like I said, for the the intended market to drink this beer, I can't really find any fault with it.
Okay.
You have to always keep in mind, what does the brewer intend the purpose of this beer to be for? And for that, like I said, I think it hits the spot.
Okay, that's good. I have no way of getting anything from that brewer here, because I don't think if it's going to get out of the state of Georgia, it's going to get out because somebody put it in their trunk and they drove it up.
Yeah.
It's not, or they mailed it. It's not coming by normal distribution. Wild Leap is not available in New York as of right now.
It will not come from the normal channels of distribution. It will
If John wants to mail me some, I guess he could, but what he probably would do is find something. He has these other brewers that he deals with some, interest. Not that that's not interesting. That is interesting, but he has some weirder stuff in the course of his travels from Athens, Georgia. He has Georgia's another good brewing state. He's found
it really is. And like I said, for this beer, someone that is a regular macro drinker, try a Coles, try a Hellas, try a blonde ale, something. Just it's a way to you tip your foot into the water and see.
Right.
Because I see so many people. I call it the Bud Light swipe. The people that enter the grocery store or something, they get a 12-pack of Bud Light. Don't even think about it. It's just they swipe by, grab it, and then they're headed off to buy the milk, bread, and cheese and whatever else they need. No thought at all given to it. And sometimes scratch my mind and said, that they might be missing out on something.
Well,
everybody has the right to drink what they choose, but as a beer drinker, I think there's such a horizon out there.
No, there is, but a lot of them, William, it's price point. You get a great buy on a 12-pack of Bud Light or whatever it is you're doing, so they want to just get it over with that way. Or when they think about craft beers, maybe they think too much about hoppy beers like this or ones which they wouldn't like, and they're not giving one like the one you're drinking a chance, which they would like.
Yeah. But it's like I guess in some people, I have a natural curiosity about things, maybe to a fault, that I will try a lot of different stuff that I'm never really, it's like I'm always thinking, am I missing out on something?
Right.
But I think that makes life interesting though.
No question. And I'm a craft beer drinker who's willing to try anything, but I almost feel that if I find an area that I really like, then I kind of hit on it more. Like I've been into these New England IPAs, which are much lighter, lower bitterness, and I've been drinking those, and I'm sure I'll drink those this summer because those in the summertime are really refreshing and nice. But I always have a feeling for these West Coast IPAs too, because I do like the bitterness.
Right. And you've drank enough beers, craft beers, that you have a good frame of reference.
That's true.
So, when you drink one, you're not just searching for something to say about it, because you have like I said, you have a baseline sort of thumbs up, thumbs down. I like these above this point, below I'm not so crazy about. But and I've drank, myself enough of these the Coast, the Hellas, the blonde ale style. I feel like I've developed a pretty decent reference point.
I've drank those as well, and I do like those. It's funny, on this ones that my cousin sent me, I haven't had any yet. He did send me 4 different Kolsch's, and I still have them. I just put them in a category they would hold up better on time than these IPAs, so I held back. But I'm going to have to drink them too. And I like Kolsch as a style. It's a refreshing, more like you said, like a lawnmower type beer where you can do it where you don't have to concentrate. And you don't worry it's going to, knock you out.
Yeah, I have a Kolsch glass I got at the Goodwill store, like 50 cents, tall and slender, and it has Kolsch on it. It's
right. It's an interesting style, and it started in Germany. That's where the first Kolsch's were brewed, but there are a lot of American companies now in the craft beer industry who have a Kolsch, which is, it's a good beer to brew. It's, like you say, very refreshing and light, and as long as it has an up taste, I like Kolsch's. It's a style I like.
One thing I pick up on many of these lighter is a slight honey note to it too, honey lemony.
Right.
Sort of goes along with your citrusy notes,
Right.
and just enough, a little like we were chatting, just a little bit of bitterness, lingers in the back of the throat.
Right. But it's funny that type bitterness might not turn off your macro drinker because it's not like the bitterness in an IPA, which really hits your palate hard.
And especially if you're eating or something, grilling out, your palate adjusts to that.
Right.
Like
That's
we're
true.
sitting here, when I we did this. I've got a clean palate right now. It's sort of like a blank slate.
Right.
So I'm getting a full taste buds effect to it. But if they're chatting, like I said, maybe on a fishing trip, grilling out, going, I would say sporting event, but that's not in play right now.
I was going to say nobody's doing that for a while.
Old habits are hard to break,
I know.
but I think it would be enjoyable. And the palate, another thing that many people don't talk about is the circumstance, the situation we drink these beers in. What did you drink before you drank this? That's going to affect it.
Right. If you had a full meal, it's going to change the effect on you.
If you're vaping, if you're doing something else, it's going to have a totally different.
No question.
Buds. I like as much as possible to have. I just like to drink beers in isolation. Just drink a beer.
Right.
To get I feel like I'm getting what the brewery intended as far as the flavor profile.
Right.
When I see the vaping and it's like the smoking or eating or something. It's always, to me, that's a little bit of a caveat,
I have a question for you, William. Did you
Okay.
realize that North Carolina is becoming a beer power?
Absolutely.
I mean, it's amazing to me.
It is. Asheville in the western part of the state
Right.
might be, you could arguably say, is the number one beer city in the country.
No, it's amazing. They have all those breweries in like a 20-mile radius around Asheville, which
Oscar
is
Blues, New Belgium, Wicked Weed,
Sierra Nevada.
They're all in that concentrated area. The water is very good.
And there are small breweries there too, among those breweries too. So
absolutely, that feed off of the interest in that area. But right. North Carolina is pretty friendly state for as businesses go. And like I say, the water, the moderate temperatures in the west, like in Brevard, is where the Oscar Blues is brewed. In the summertime, the average temperature is about 75 degrees. A lot of elderly citizens moved to that area, western North Carolina, because of the moderate temperatures. It's just a pleasant place to live.
Right.
And I'm glad to see that the influx of breweries in the state, but it is becoming a very big beer state.
Right. It's also in Raleigh, Durham. It's also in Winston-Salem and right. Greensboro too. So I mean, you're getting it pretty much across the state. And I can tell just from these beers that my cousin sent me that it's very representative and high quality too. These are not like schlocky breweries. They're ones that are competing. And if the beer is good, that's good. But sometimes it's above average too, and even bordering on world-class stuff. Some of the stuff's been amazingly good. I'm surprised.
These are quality controlled breweries. It's not just like some guys out in his backyard. He set up a brewery, and home.
And we don't know where they've been before. Maybe they were home brewers. Maybe they had worked for breweries before. We don't know, how the history. You'd have to look at the individual brewery you're talking about. But whatever they're doing, it's a good thing. And I've had some of these beers from Burial, which is in Raleigh. And can you get Burial? Have you seen?
Yes.
They have a lot of, their art is very cool with skeletons and all kinds of really macabre stuff. But the beers are really good. And my nephew took me to their pub, their brew pub. I know their beer is not brewed there, but he took me to the brew pub. I brought back a can, but got to try some of their stuff, and it was very good. Really enjoyed it. And I can get some Burial stuff here, but it seems like the stuff we get is not their really good stuff. They ship like their extraneous stuff to New York, which doesn't mean it's bad. Like a Belgian ale we might get. We're not getting their good stouts and their good IPAs here, which is unfortunate. But we're getting maybe some of their off stuff, which is still good.
Can you get the Wicked Weed?
My nephew gave me some. I have a couple that he gave me. But I haven't seen any Wicked Weed here where I could buy it. But my nephew gave me a couple.
I was just sort of curious about their distribution now, being that they were taking over
Well, so far I haven't seen it. I
ABN.
told you though, my nephew gave me one of the Foothills Sexual Chocolate, which I haven't had yet, which you've had, which John and Illy has had,
Yeah.
and I would love to try it. I do have that too. Besides the Dream, I have that one also, which he gave me, and I've heard some really good things about it. That it's really excellent. So
Yeah. A couple months ago, my cousin treated me to a day. We went to Foothills, the restaurant in downtown Winston-Salem. Got a flight of beers. They were out of one beer, so they substituted the sexual chocolate. And I said, man,
wow.
I'm I'm lucky today.
I was going to say,
It,
if you'd gotten the regular beer that they normally had, it wouldn't have been as good.
and he and my cousin, he was very gracious. He said, "You drink, and it was really good." I was eating a corned beef sandwich, the best
Wow,
corned beef sandwich I've ever had.
that's great.
It was really delicious, and drinking that sexual chocolate, I mean, it is really good. It's one of those. It's rich, but it's not overbearing.
I'm going to have to try it, and that's something I wouldn't have on a stout Sunday
Right?
because I would want to be able to share that with somebody. So
Yeah.
I might do that on a once everything with this COVID is gone and we're back to normal, where I do my group. I could do that where everybody could get a little bit, or sometimes you can just share it with one friend and split the bottle, kind of thing, and sit over it and sip it and savor it, kind of thing too. So you got those choices
Yeah.
for
That's
sure.
one. It's not a sessionable beer, but I think some people who might be turned off when they see an ABV that's in like double figures, I think they would be surprised how enjoyable it is. It's not over. It's just right for that style.
Well, I think my cousin has had a couple of different years of it, and he says it stays pretty consistently the same too, which is another sign of a good brewer. If you can brew it every year and it's similar, where you don't make changes and whatever. And he really liked it, and he told me about it before, but he gave me a bottle when I was there in January, and I have it, and I have to try it for
Yeah,
sure.
Foothills is a pretty big operation, and they brew a lot of the beers for Natty Green in Greensboro, another brewery in
Right.
Greensboro.
Well, it's funny. I'm going to send when we finish. I'm going to send you a picture of what we did last night on Facebook, so you can take a look at it. We did the Natty Green. They had a single hop Citra called Mighty Citra, and it obviously against these different stouts I did, it wasn't going to win because it's what it is. It doesn't have a chance against no matter how you rate the stuff. The stouts are going to always win in these contests because the stouts are stouts, and just what you know from your drinking, there's more there to them. But for a single hop Citra IP, it wasn't an IPA, it was a pale ale. It was really good, and it didn't finish last. It beat out the Founders Civilized Brute, and it beat out something else. So
Civilized Brute. That's sort of an oxymoron, isn't it?
that's
Civilized Brute. Okay.
how they set this up. But it did okay. And when you're I'll send you the things so you can look at the different beers. We did 8, and it was an interesting combination. The stouts were all the ones that were at the top, and the Scotch Ale did very well also. It's from Oscar Blues, Old Chub. It did very well also. It's a very interesting beer in that it's well balanced, and people like the balance in it. My wife liked it, and my friend liked it too, and it was a lot of fun getting together. And I don't know, the next one is on May 6th, which is in 5 weeks. Let's hope that this thing has gone past its whole circle, at least in New York, and things can start getting back to normal. But we'll see. Only time will tell. And as of right now, things are not going well, but we hope for the future that it gets better.
Absolutely.
But William, thanks a lot for hosting.
Yeah.
I got to take off.
In my mind, we were talking about the sexual chocolate. I haven't had the barrel version. The
Yeah,
barrel.
I haven't either. John mentioned that there was one even when you went to the brewery, but they didn't have it then. But they were supposed to be brewing some.
They also have a blueberry stout. It's called Dead to Be Buried.
Have you ever tried that?
I've had that one.
Is that good too?
Very good too.
Okay,
It's
something
like
to look for.
it's like, wow, this is really good. Stouts might not be my favorite, but mom, this is really good.
You like it?
Anyway, like this is a mini Fandango Friday.
Thank you, William, for hosting.
I drank a beer from LaGrange. ZZ Top had a hit song, LaGrange. So all this sort of comes together with a theme. But
Okay.
I appreciate you joining me tonight. And
Okay, thanks a lot for hosting, and I'm looking forward to seeing you on Wild Card Wednesdays and Stout Sundays as well. And I know this was impromptu, but keep in touch, and I'll send you that information. And thanks again for hosting.
I thank you, and have a good weekend.
You too. Enjoy. Be safe.
And all beer drinkers, bottoms up and no spills.
Okay, be safe.
Okay.